Okay, so Loud House did a special. I call it a special in quotations, but I'll get to that later. It was a 2 hour long special, and it's not what you think it was. It was actually really consisting of one 22-minute segment, I believe, and then 6 other 11-minute segments. I would definitely say, because the actual special itself was called Road Trip, I would say the first episode is probably the only real thing that really focuses on the road trip aspects. Which is kind of unfortunate, because I feel like it actually had a lot of potential. And I'll get to that a little bit later whenever I get done actually, with all the episodes and with all the episode reviews. Because that's really what this is. It's all episodes. There's literally no connection whatsoever with any of these episodes, really. Aside from the very simple, they're on a road trip. Alright, so the first one is Bazaratorium. This is kind of an episode where it's like, Rita is tasked with doing something for the Gazette, and she has to go to places and take a road trip to basically get stories for that Gazette and to write stuff for that Gazette, whatever. It actually had a lot of potential because I feel like they actually could have probably built off of this. And honestly, it would have actually been kind of cool to have this be the conflict of the entire special. But no, it didn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. This episode just feels confused itself, honestly. It feels like 2 episodes. Like 2 11-minute segments. That's actually what I thought was at first. And then I realized, oh no, it's still going after the commercial break. I was like, oh, okay. I feel like Lincoln should have apologized for what he did to the family at the beginning of the episode, where he screamed at them and told them what to do or whatever, and pushed everybody out the door of the Loud House. Versus apologizing for the curse that, let's be honest, he really had nothing to do with. I mean, yeah, he picked up the item. He went into an out-of-business building and picked up an item, but it wasn't like, hey, now I'm gonna curse my family. I really like the beginning part, though. The beginning part. The first 11 minutes of this episode. With the megaphone. With with him just, yelling at his parents and yelling at his sisters, bossing them around and telling them what to do. It felt very classic Loud House, where Lincoln comes up with a scheme to go to this mystery shack type, place with all of these oddities and this tourist trappy vibe, only for that to be out of business, which basically makes that whole part of the episode completely pointless in the grand scheme of things, which is one of my main problems with this episode. And then, of course, he finds that cursed object as a memento, and he thinks, oh, this is cool, I guess I'll just wear this is cool, only for it to be cursed, blah, blah, blah. And then after that, like I say, the first 11 minutes are great. It's Lincoln, doing all these crazy shenanigans and stuff to try and get this, convoluted plan to work. It reminds me so much of old Loud House. It's so good. And then you get the second half of this episode, which is the perfect balance of things. The first half is what Loud House was. And now the second half is what Loud House became. Because now you got a curse that has lightning and all this other crazy shit that happens. And then the episode kind of turns into Tripped. Kind of. It feels like a rehash of Tripped, because everything goes wrong for them. Only difference is that instead of just everything going wrong, it's a curse that's making everything go wrong. It's basically Tripped, but only with the more supernatural elements that have kind of been playing in the show for a few years now. I think I've already said it before, but I'm going to mention it again. I absolutely despise the show and its use of supernatural, unrealistic kind of things. I fell in love with the show because it was grounded. Not oh, here's a ghost curse. And look, we're gonna sacrifice Lincoln. What? But like I said, this episode feels like 2 episodes. Have you one episode was classic Loud House. It's a classic setup with a nice ending, a nice little catalyst. But now that we have this being one episode, split up, of course, with the commercial break at the very, halfway point of it, the first half, in the grand scheme of things, whenever you look at this as a 22-minute episode, because of this, is pretty much pointless. There's no real catalyst for that. None of that is ever mentioned. Again, it's all the curse. From then on, it's all the curse. That's it. There's no mention of it. Nothing about his parents at the very end saying, and the megaphone. Which, by the way, I absolutely love that part, by the way. The part where, Lincoln is just, bossing everybody around and being, the team leader and all this other stuff. Also, the part where Mr. Coconuts, whenever he's in Luann's room, Mr. Coconuts has, the eyes open, and Lincoln's "Eee," and he, closes them. And then only for him to leave, and then Mr. Coconuts' eyes open back up. Once again, that's something that classic Loud House would have done. That's really, really funny. There are good bits about this episode. I'm not saying there aren't. There are good bits. It's just honestly kind of weird that, Lincoln's family just kind of forgot about everything he did. He switched the clocks backwards, an hour, just to ensure that they were able to get to that bazaratorium in time. It seemed like so much buildup for nothing to happen. I just love how Lincoln had to apologize for something that didn't directly involve him. It wasn't his intention. Honestly, I don't think he even knew, to be honest. Not the thing that he actually did on purpose, which was, yelling at people and, bossing them around and, pushing them out of their house, obviously, and, switching their clocks around. Come on. This review's a mess. But you know what? This episode's a mess. It really is perfectly average. It is so perfectly average that, I can't even tell. I've never been more impressed with an average episode in my entire life. Because of how average it is. Because it's literally one half is decent/good, and then the other half is average/bad. I honestly feel like if you want to make the argument that, Lincoln had to get karma in some way for whatever he did, I feel like this episode would have worked a lot more while also keeping the original first half of this episode intact and actually making it come up later. I remember Lisa, I don't know what she actually said, exactly. I forgot what she actually said. It's been, I'll be honest, it's been a week since I've seen it. But she said something along the lines of she thought it was fake. It's, that's ridiculous, or that's absolutely ridiculous. There's no way that's real. But instead of it being out of business, imagine for a second if Lincoln actually got to this place, goes in there, gets all excited, yes, my plan worked, only for it to backfire. What if it turned out to be a sham, a fake, a scam, a phony? Make it the worst place imaginable. I feel like that would have been a good way to give Lincoln proper karma for all of his actions at the beginning, while also making the beginning actually come back into play during the second half of this episode. I just think it's ridiculous how everyone utterly despises Lincoln for a curse he didn't even mean to put on his family, while he also kind of took advantage of them at the beginning for his own personal gain, and they just forget about that for no apparent reason. It would have been the perfect setup. Average episode, let's move on. Bringing down the house. This one should be a little bit more brief. Pretty much the Loud family gets VIP passes to get a tour of the White House. They go on the tour. It's boring. They basically go into off-limit rooms that they're not supposed to. Damage White House property. Then fixes them for the president to invite them to his birthday party. It was just okay. It just feels like a normal episode. The road trip is barely mentioned. Only at the very beginning. It's just there. Not really much else to say. Alright, here we go. Mountain Hard Pass. This episode is about Rita and Lynn Senior just wanting to take their family on a hike around the mountain or whatever. And the kids are just oh, we just want to stay inside. And so they scheme a plan to basically ruin the hiking adventure just to get back inside. Finally, an actual decent episode. This actually has something kind of to do with the road trip, while also being special enough for the special. But of course, because it's a good episode, I'm not going to say much. Just know that I love the gags, as well as Lincoln once again taking a more leadership role in this episode. He kind of did do that too in a previous episode, but more so in this one for sure. Honestly, it just feels like this should have been just the second part of the episode. Make this a 22-minute special. What can I say? It's a good episode. It's a decent / good episode. From Brad to worse. This episode is about Lynn Senior thinking that his wife is cheating on him or having an affair. As Rita meets someone who used to be an old school crush of hers. And this is a really, really fun episode. I like this one too. It actually stars Lynn Senior for one of the very first times, I'm gonna have to say. Like, seriously, I cannot think of the last time that we've had a legitimate Lynn Senior-centric episode. I don't remember. It's been a while for sure. But I love that. I think that's awesome. I think that's great. Once again, not much emphasis on the road trip aspects. But, to be honest, I think we all kind of see this coming. None of the rest of these episodes are going to be anything to do with the road trip, really, directly. It's unfortunate. It's a shame. But that's just the way it goes sometimes, unfortunately, with the show. However, this is still a good episode. It's actually an interesting idea and concept. Done pretty well. Predictably, yes, but I thoroughly enjoyed it regardless. It's pretty good, not much more to say. I like the story, the gags are funny, I like how it stars Lynn Senior, and it was interesting for sure. Dull day afternoon. This episode starts off rather standardly, with Mr. Coconuts being kidnapped and Luann wanting her family to go find him. There's a few good moments in this first half of the episode, but in the second half is where we really get some good stuff. We actually get the backstory of Mr. Coconuts, as the person who stole him was actually his original creator and owner. And after Luann then realizes that Mr. Coconuts belongs to him and not her, she actually gives him up. She gives him Mr. Coconuts in an actually kind of emotional scene. Something that surprised me a great amount, as this show never does that sort of thing. So we actually have gotten a bit of character development, as Luann and Mr. Coconuts go their separate ways. Just a good episode. I mean, the beginning part was pretty much standard, but the ending made up for it. I really cannot believe that the show managed to do that and not, like, revert it back to normal. You know what I mean? Like, they didn't pull a SpongeBob. Wait. What do you mean? I need to watch the rest of it? Okay. I guess. Yeah, after further review, this episode, decent. I would say probably decent, yeah. Some of that. The owner of Mr. Coconuts comes back and gives Luann back Mr. Coconuts in a very predictable fashion. I know this show is episodic. I know it's nothing too serious. But oh my god, that sucks. I love that scene. I thought that scene was handled so well. It honestly showed that the Loud House is actually capable of doing something like that. But no, it's gotta revert back to normal, you know, how it is. Man, what could have been? That would have been so cool. I still think the episode is decent and fine enough, especially with that scene. I still think that scene is great. Like, dude, it was like an amphibia type scene. I was like, oh my god, they're not doing this. They're not doing this. Please don't tell me they're doing this. But turns out they're not. Yeah, they're not. Yeah, they're not. It was just kind of there. It was just kind of there and forgotten about. No one really cares. Okay. Man, that was disappointing. String Queen. Pretty decent. Another standard Lola episode. This episode is about Lola becoming like a Hollywood star or something. I don't know. She's like a part of a movie and stuff. It's very basic. Very, very standard. Not really much else to say. It's just kind of there. I don't think it was necessarily bad. I just think it was just kind of alright. Some parts of it were kind of cool. Other parts of it were kind of... It was just very predictable, basically, is what I'm trying to say. Alright, and now we have entered the final episode of this little marathon. Hide and Seek. This episode is about the last stop on the road trip where they go to Great Lake City. Yes! It's a Casa Grande's crossover! Woo! Oh man, can you believe it's been a year since the Casa Grande's ended? Fucking hell. I honestly just feel like this could have just been the special. Could you imagine like a Casa Grande's and Loud House crossover road trip special? I'm sorry, that would have been pretty cool. Am I the only one who thinks that? Would that have been pretty cool? I think that would have been pretty cool. But no, they just get one episode. But this episode is basically just about the Loud family needing to hide from the Casa Grandes. Because I guess, like, Rita doesn't have enough time to, like, talk to them and, like, explain to them what's going on. I guess. It was an entertaining episode, but, I mean, it was okay. It was fine. The gags were there, and it was pretty funny. It certainly wasn't anything incredible and anything to write home about. But it certainly wasn't bad. It was fine enough for what it was. All that matters is I got my call cameo, and I'm very, very happy about that. And that is Road Trip. As a whole, this 2-hour special was just kind of there. The first episode was really the only interesting one, but even then, by the time you get into the 11-minute episodes, they basically just forget about that episode anyways. And the fact that the best episode and the one that actually served the special the most turned out to be an average episode is pretty telling. I mean, it literally introduces the idea of Rita being tasked to go to all of these different landmarks, only for the curse to happen, causing Rita to miss out on the landmark if she didn't get there in time. Then the girl at the Gazette basically just says, "Oh, just do whatever you want, I don't care, it'll make a good story anyways." Practically confirming that, yeah, none of the other episodes that you see are gonna have anything to do with us. We just kind of did this just because. It just seems lazy, because they just never ever mention it again until the very last episode. Like, as soon as the last episode happens, "Oh, guys, I gotta write the stories for the Gazette, guys." It's like, what have you been doing the entire time? I actually think that would have been a really, really good conflict for this entire special as a whole. Could you imagine her having to go to these different landmarks at certain times for, like, the family to mess up or for something else to happen and weirdly? Yes, it would be a rehash of trips. Yes. But didn't the advertising kind of hint at that? Just a little. As it turns out, most of the episodes that they were advertising were only about 3 of those. The rest of them were just kind of standard 11-minute Loud House episodes. Nothing really much else to say. By the way, did you know that this was about 3 months in the show's time? Just letting you know that. I'm just letting you know that, because the show lets you know that. But it's not really that important. It really isn't that important. Honestly, you could have told me this was a month, and I would have believed you. I'm not expecting, like, amphibia levels of continuity, but man, it would have been nice just to have a little bit of continuity in between these episodes. Like, the idea that I just mentioned with Rita having to go to all these different landmarks. Make it special, make it different, make it unique. Try something you've never done before. Of all the times to try something like that, why not here? A 2-hour special. You have an opportunity. Keep people watching. It's not like they're not capable of doing stuff like that, because you got the Mr. Coconuts thing. Honestly, just do what Big C Greens does. Big C Greens has continuity while being episodic. Self-contained storylines in each episode, with a loose plot thread connecting them together. The road trip. Maybe Rita having to go to all these different landmarks. If anyone has ever watched Big C Greens, think of season 3B. Very similar to that. Very, very similar to that. That's kind of what I have in mind. But that type of continuity. Just that type of continuity. Anyways, this special is there. You know? It wasn't really a special. I think I kind of said it earlier, and I said that this was a marathon, really, because that's really what it was. 2-hour long Loud House thing. It was interesting. It was weird. It was unique, but it wasn't really that good, and that's kind of unfortunate. I still think Schooled was pretty good. That was an hour long, and that was the first ever hour-long special of the Loud House. But the 2-hour special, the first ever 2-hour special, didn't really fare too much better. I just feel like these characters, this show, and these writers have so much potential to do stuff, like Big City Greens, like Amphibia somewhat, but they just don't do it, you know? It's just really, really unfortunate. But anyways, guys, that was my review of Road Trip Loud House. Hopefully this wasn't too long. I'm looking at my audio track, and it's about 39 minutes. Probably going to be a little bit lengthy, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, I said everything I want to say, and I'll go and see you guys soon in my next review, whenever that may be. So thank you guys so much for watching, and it's been me, Taylor, and I'll see you guys soon. Take care, everybody.